You can put those away, he growled, stumping over to his desk and sitting down. Those books, you won't need them. They returned the books to their bags, Ron looking excited. Moody took out a register, shook his long mane of grizzled gray hair out of his twisted and scarred face, and began to call out names, his normal eye moving steadily down the list, while his magical eye swirled around, fixing upon each student as he or she answered. Right then, he said, when the last person had declared themselves present. I've had a letter from Professor Lupin about this class. Seems you've had a pretty thorough grounding in tackling dark creatures. You've covered bogarts, redcaps, inky punks, grindelows, kappas, and werewolves. Is that right? There was a general murmur of assent. But you're behind, very behind, on dealing with curses, said Moody. So I'm here to bring you up to scratch on what wizards can do to each other. I've got 1 year to teach you how to deal with dark. What aren't you saying? Ron blurted out. Moody's magical eye spun around to stare at Ron. Ron looked extremely apprehensive, but after a moment Moody smiled. The first time Harry had seen him do so. The effect was to make his heavily scarred face look more twisted and contorted than ever, but it was nevertheless a relief to know that he ever did anything as friendly as smile. Ron looked deeply relieved. You'll be Arthur Weasley's son, eh? Moody said. Your father got me out of a very tight corner a few days ago. Yeah, I'm staying for 1 year. Special favour to Dumbledore. 1 year and then back to my quiet retirement. He gave a harsh laugh and then clapped his gnarled hands together. So, straight into it, curses. They come in many strengths and forms. Now, according to the Ministry of Magic, I'm supposed to teach you counter curses and leave it at that. I'm not supposed to show you what illegal dark curses look like until you're in the 6th year. You're not supposed to be old enough to deal with it until then. But Professor Dumbledore has got a high opinion of your nerves. He reckons you can cope, and I say the sooner you know what you're up against, the better. How are you supposed to defend yourselves against something you've never seen? A wizard who's about to put an illegal curse on you isn't going to tell you what he's about to do. He's not going to do it nice and polite to your face. You need to be prepared. You need to be alert and watchful. You need to put that away, Miss Brown, when I'm talking. Lavender jumped and blushed. She had been showing Parvati her completed horoscope under the desk. Apparently Moody's magical eye could see through solid wood, as well as out of the back of his head. So, do any of you know which curses are most heavily punished by wizarding law? Several hands rose tentatively into the air, including Ron's and Hermione's. Moody pointed at Ron, though his magical eye was still fixed on Lavender. Said Ron tentatively. My dad told me about one. It's called the Imperious Curse, or something. Ah, yes, said Moody apprehensively. Your father would know about that one. Gave the ministry a lot of trouble at one time, the Imperious Curse. Moody got heavily to his mismatched feet, opened his desk drawer, and took out a glass jar. 3 large black spiders were scuttling around inside it. Harry felt Ron recoil slightly next to him. Ron hated spiders. Moody reached into the jar, caught one of the spiders, and held it in the palm of his hand, so that they could all see it. He then pointed his wand at it and muttered, Imperio. The spider leapt from Moody's hand on a fine thread of silk, and began to swing backwards and forwards as though it was on a trapeze. It stretched out its legs rigidly, then did a back flip, breaking the thread and landing on the desk, where it began to cartwheel in circles. Moody jerked his wand, and the spider rose onto 2 of its hind legs and went into what was unmistakably a tap dance. Everyone was laughing, except for Moody. Think it's funny, do you? He growled. You'd like it, would you, if I did it to you? The laughter died almost instantly. Total control, said Moody quietly, as the spider balled itself up and began to roll over and over. I could make it jump out of the window, drown itself, throw itself down one of your throats. Ron gave it an involuntary shudder. Years back, there were a lot of witches and wizards being controlled by the Imperious Curse, and Moody, and Harry knew he was talking about the days in which Voldemort had been all powerful. Some job for the ministry trying to sort out who was being forced to act and who was acting of their own free will. The Imperious Curse can be fought, and I'll be teaching you how. But it takes a lot of real strength of character. Not everyone's got it. Better avoid being hit with it if you can. Constant vigilance, he barked, and everyone jumped. Moody picked up the somersaulting spider and threw it back into the jar. Anyone else know one? Another illegal curse? Hermione's hand flew into the air again, and so, to Harry's slight surprise, did Neville's. The only class in which Neville usually volunteered information was herbology, which was easily his best subject. Neville looked surprised at his own daring. Yes, said Moody, his magical eye rolling right over to fix on Neville. There's one, the Cruciatus Curse, said Neville, in a small but distinct voice. Moody was looking very intently at Neville, this time with both eyes. Your name's Longbottom, he said, his magical eye swooping down to check the registry again. Neville nodded nervously, but Moody made no further inquiries. Turning back to the class at large, he reached into the jar for the next spider and placed it upon the desktop, where it remained motionless, apparently too scared to move. The Cruciatus Curse, said Moody, needs to be a bit bigger for you to get the idea, he said, pointing his wand at the spider. Engorgio. The spider swelled. It was now larger than a tarantula. Abandoning all pretense, Ron pushed his chair backwards, as far away from Moody's desk as possible. Moody raised his wand again, pointing it at the spider, and muttered, Crucio! At once the spider's legs bent in upon its body, and it rolled over and began to twitch horribly, rocking from side to side. No sound came from it, but Harry was sure that if it could have given voice, it would have been screaming. Moody did not remove his wand, and the spider started to shudder and jerk more violently. Stop it! Hermione said shrilly. Harry looked around at her. She was looking not at the spider, but at Neville, and Harry following her gaze, saw that Neville's hands were clenched upon the desk in front of him, his knuckles white and his eyes wide and horrified. Moody raised his wand, and the spider's legs relaxed, but it continued to twitch. Reducio! Moody muttered, and the spider shrank back to its proper size. He put it back into the jar. Pain, said Moody softly. You don't need thumb screws or knives to torture someone if you can perform the Cruciatus Curse. That one was very popular once, too. Right. Anyone know any others? Harry looked around. From the looks on everyone's faces, he guessed that they were all wondering what was going to happen to the last spider. Hermione's hand shook slightly as, for the third time, she raised it into the air. Yes, said Moody, looking at her. Avada, Hermione whispered. Several people looked uneasily around at her, including Ron. Ah, said Moody, another slight smile twisting his lopsided face. Yes, the last and worst. Avada, the killing curse. He put his hand into the jar, and almost as though it knew what was coming, the third spider scuttled frantically around the bottom of the jar, trying to evade Moody's fingers. But he trapped it and placed it upon the desktop. It started to scuttle frantically across the wooden surface. Moody raised his wand, and Harry felt a sudden thrill of foreboding. Avada! Moody roared. There was a flash of blinding green light and a rushing sound, as though a vast invisible something was soaring through the air. Instantly, the spider rolled onto its back, unmarked, but unmistakably dead. Several of the girls stifled cries, and Ron threw himself backwards and almost toppled off his seat as the spider skidded towards him. Moody swept the dead spider off the desk onto the floor. Not nice, he said calmly. Not pleasant, and there's no counter-curse. There's no blocking it. Only one known person has ever survived it, and he's sitting right in front of me. Harry felt His face reddened as Moody's eyes, both of them, looked at into his own. He could feel everyone else looking around at him, too. Harry stared at the blank blackboard as though fascinated by it, but not really seeing it at all. So that was how his parents had died, exactly like that spider. Had they been unblemished and unmarked too? Had they simply seen the flash of green light and heard the rush of speeding death before life was wiped from their bodies?